Well, we often say that we're extremely fortunate for having this precious human life. Simply rejoicing at having a precious human life isn't sufficient, because having it, we have to make use of it. So we always say that the best way to make use of it is to generate the bodhicitta. But to do that, we also have to subdue our ignorance, anger, and attachment. And so in our day-to-day life, we have to be very aware of what's going on in our mind and how the intentions of our mind manifest in external actions. And when we see an affliction in our mind, to do something about it. In other words, not just say, oh, well, there's laziness, there's attachment, there's anger. Oh, my mind is so full of afflictions. And that's it. Yeah, we have to notice it, but then, also try to apply an antidote. And if we apply antidotes, at first it may seem like we're not getting anywhere, but with time, as we practice, then we are successful and we see a change in our mind, and the people around us also see that change. So when we're motivating for bodhicitta, with bodhicitta, for the benefit of all beings and to attain enlightenment, we're also making a commitment to do something about that. And so really trying to oppose our afflictions and cultivate our good qualities. And so to learn how to do that, we'll talk about the Bodhisattva ethical restraints. Okay, so we're on the last of the 18 root. So this 18th one is from the Sutra for Skillful Means, and it says, forsaking bodhicitta. Okay, so you can see how, if this is the whole series of ethical restraints that we take motivated by bodhicitta, if we forsake bodhicitta, something's really wrong. Okay, you can see why this is a major downfall. This major transgression consists of giving up aspirational bodhicitta. Remember, we talked about two kinds of bodhicitta, aspiring and engaging. So aspiring wants to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, and engaging is committed to doing that and is actively doing that. So we differentiate between the conventional or relative bodhicitta, the aspiration to become a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings, and the ultimate bodhicitta, which is the realization of emptiness. Okay? So we may talk about aspiring and engaging bodhicitta, but those are both subdivisions of conventional bodhicitta. Okay? We also have the ultimate bodhicitta, which is the wisdom realizing emptiness. This misdeed involves the conventional bodhicitta, which has two levels, aspirational and engaging. Okay? So the Great Way explains that the fault is made in relation to aspiration aspiring bodhicitta, and that the basis for forsaking aspiring bodhicitta must be someone who has the Bodhisattva vow. Okay, clearly you can't forsake it. I mean, you aren't going to break this root vow if you don't have it. Okay. Okay. So we forsake our aspiring bodhicitta when, for example, we make an exception for a certain person and think, he is such a nuisance that I will never help him gain freedom from samsara. He will have to manage without me. Okay. But it sounds kind of stupid, you know. But sometimes we get really mad at people, don't we? I mean, like really, really mad, you know. And besides saying, you know, he can go burn in hell and rot and, you know, all the other sweet things we say when we're really mad, you know, if somebody came up and said to us at that time, you know, are you going to lead him to enlightenment? We would go, you know, beep, 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 you know. We're certainly not in any mood to do anything for that person except cause him suffering. Because that's what anger is like. Yeah. So you may think, oh, giving up bodhicitta, I won't do that. But think about times when you've been really, really furious. Really furious. You know. And at that time, if somebody said, now, do you want to attain enlightenment for this person? Do you want to go to the lowest hell realms to benefit him? What are you going to say?
He goes first.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. As regards the object, it makes no difference who we exclude. It can be any living being, human or otherwise. It can even be an evil spirit. So it doesn't matter if the person is somebody who's been kind to us or been mean to us, or, you know, doesn't matter how they've treated us. It's our forsaking them. Bodhicitta is the aspiration to work towards the happiness of all living beings without exception, and therefore abandoning just a single being is completely inconsistent with it. Yeah. So that means that, you know, when you're sitting in the house and there's a stink bug crawling around, yeah, to look at that stink bug and say, I'm depending on that stink bug to generate bodhicitta and become a Buddha. Because it's true, isn't it? Yeah. If we don't include that stink bug in our bodhicitta, there's no way we're going to become Buddhas. Okay? So, all of our adorable hornets and wasps and bees and yellow jackets and ants, I mean, the stink bug's a cinch. Yeah. But some of these other ones, and then, you know, not to mention human beings, what they do. Yeah. But, you know, to really look at everybody and say, you know, my enlightenment depends on that sentient being. Mm-hmm. The action is thinking from the bottom of our heart that we will never help a certain being again, no matter what happens. As soon as we entertain such a thought, I don't think it's just entertain like it flashes through our mind, but, you know, we're having a good entertainment session. We're, you know, involved in this thought. The transgression is complete, and we immediately lose our bodhisattva ethical restraints. The presence of the four binding factors is not necessary. However, it is not a matter of making a casual remark like, I can't stand him. We do that all the time, don't we? Not very compassionate. But we must be truly determined never to do anything to help a certain being again. Okay, so we have seen that two major transgressions alone do not require the presence of the four binding factors to constitute a major misdeed. the 9th, holding wrong views, and the 18th, forsaking the bodhicitta. In these two cases, we lose the bodhisattva ethical restraints, even when the 4 binding factors are absent. Okay, so it's very clear in this case, especially with the 9th and the 18th. We don't have to say anything. We don't have to do anything physically. It all, the major downfall can happen in our mind just by the way we're thinking. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 4 binding factors. So the first one is not considering the action to be wrong. Second, not wishing to abstain from the action in the future, but rather wanting to repeat it. 3, taking pleasure in the action and delighting it. And 4, feeling no sense of integrity or consideration for others. Okay, what do we have in here? Not regarding one's action as negative or not caring that it is, even though one recognizes that the action is transgressing a vow. This has a little bit slightly different interpretation. 2 is not abandoning the thought to do it again. 3 is being happy and rejoicing in the action. And 4 is not having personal integrity or consideration for others regarding what one has done. Okay, we also find these 4 binding factors in the 6th session Guru Yoga. Yeah, they're in there. 16 of the 18 root transgressions are major transgressions only when the 4 binding factors are present from the beginning to the end of the action. Take, for example, when we make the mistake of praising ourselves or looking down on someone, the transgression occurs only when what we say is accompanied by the 4 binding factors from the moment we start until the moment we stop. Okay, so now we're going to look at the 4 binding factors. So first one, not considering an action to be wrong. Yeah. So let us continue with the example of praising ourselves or denigrating someone else. We see someone being given a valuable gift, for example, and we are jealous. We don't like the idea that this person is receiving it, and we're not, because we want it for ourselves. So maybe a donor is giving something nice to somebody else in the monastery, and that person already has that, and I really need it, and how come they're not giving it to me? This person always gets the good stuff, not me. Yeah. Motivated by greed and jealousy, we look for ways to prevent the person from obtaining it, so that we may be given it. Instead, we make disparaging comments about the person or extol our imaginary good qualities. Oh, so-and-so, they already have that, and they don't treat it very well. They don't need it, they don't take very good care of their stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I'm a much better practitioner. You should really give it to me. I mean, we're not that blatant, are we? But, we find our own little ways to let it be known how good we are. Okay. We see no wrong in doing this and feel perfectly justified in what we do. Because, after all, that person already has something. And anyway, they're not a very good practitioner, so why should they get it and not me? Yeah, so we feel perfectly justified. What I'm doing is not wrong. It's actually kind of good because I'm protecting this benefactor. Otherwise, they're going to waste their money giving this offering to that person when they could actually create some merit giving it to me. Yeah. We see no wrong in doing this. Okay, I said that already. We might think that we deserve the present more than the other person does, and therefore have every right to ensure that we get it. Right? Yeah. Or maybe it happens with a sibling. We're jealous of what a brother or sister is getting. And, and they don't even practice the Dharma. Why should they get that and not us? We're all part of the same family, our parents or whoever it is. They should give it to me because I'm the one who practices the Dharma. Yeah. All they do is waste their good karma, It is possible, however, that as soon as such thoughts arise in our mind, we immediately become aware that they are blameworthy. If we change our mind in time and consider what we are doing is wrong, the first binding factor is absent. Okay, so you're right there, the mouth is open, the words are about to come out, and then you go, maybe I need to reconsider this. And you close the mouth. Yeah? So, then actually, if you're going to completely abstain from the actions, there's not going to be a break whatsoever. But let's keep going here. Imagine that we have already said what we intended to say. We didn't close our mouth fast enough. And it is only a moment later that we realize that we have done something wrong. In this case, there are several possibilities. The person does not immediately understand what we say and asks us to repeat ourselves. If we abstain, an element is missing. Okay, nothing. I didn't mean it anyway. Since the first binding factor is lacking, the misdeed is incomplete. If the other person understood what we said the first time, the action is already complete with the first binding factor. Realizing that what we have done was wrong after the fact is too late to prevent the transgression. We see that it sometimes is an advantage not to speak a language very well, for our comments may not be immediately understood by others. In these circumstances, if we realize our mistake in time, we can avoid a major transgression.
You think sometimes to put some tape in my mouth?
I mean, this is one of the reasons we keep silence during retreat. Yeah? Because when we keep silent, then those things don't come out of the mouth. And also, when we keep silence, we notice all the urges we have to speak. How so much it just comes into the mind, I want to say something. And it usually comes out of our mouth without thinking. When we have times in our life when we keep silent, it makes us much more aware of those urges to speak. And then we get some time to really consider, is what I'm saying necessary? Yeah. Is it necessary? Is it advantageous? Or is it just blah, blah? Or worse even worse, is it, transgressing my precepts or damaging someone else? Okay, so number 2 is not wishing to abstain from the action in the future, but rather wanting to repeat it. Since we do not see anything wrong with what we do, that's the first binding factor, we do not have the slightest intention to try and avoid doing it again. Okay? On the contrary, we plan to repeat in the future what we've done in the past. Okay? So no wish to abstain from doing it at all. And so you can see why the first one is the first one, because if we don't think what we're doing is wrong, then we're not going to want to abstain from it. We will rejoice in having it, and we won't have any integrity or consideration for others, because we don't think that we've even committed a fault. So you can see what is very tricky about this is we are with the times that we transgress these precepts are the times that we have no idea in our mind that we're transgressing them. Yeah? And so it may only be well after the fact that we look back on what we said or what we did or what we thought and went, uh-oh, But at the time, to have the 4 binding factors complete, we have no idea that we've even broken a precept because we don't consider what we're doing to have any faults. Yeah? So part of that way of thinking could come from ignorance because we don't know what the precepts are. Yeah. Part of it could come simply because our mind is so obscured. Part of it could come because we're so overwhelmed by afflictions, and we just see, oh, if I say this, I'm going to get some benefit, that the thought doesn't even enter our mind. Yeah? So, maybe we're reckless, or maybe we're just out to lunch, or we're overwhelmed by afflictions, or we don't know what the precepts are. But, yeah, you can see how this happens. Then 3 is taking pleasure in the action and delighting in it. This factor has 2 aspects, a feeling of joy and a feeling of delight. The first term, joy, refers to the pleasure we experience at the prospect of doing the action and in its preparation. I'm going to get this offering. And then, I'm just telling the person the nice thing, the good qualities that I have. I'm not lying or anything. Yeah, it's not a major downfall of my monastic vows. I'm not lying about my attainments. I'm not even saying I have attainments. I'm just telling them how well I practice. Nothing wrong with that. It's true. No? Okay, so the second aspect designates a feeling of delight regarding the activity in general. For example, we may love to talk about our supposed talents or accomplishments. We like the idea of it. We enjoy it when we're doing it, and we're glad of having done it. Yeah? So even, taking something that belongs to the 3 jewels. Yeah. Oh, there's, all these, what are those anyway? Crackers? On the altar. They're going bad. I might as well take them, and it'll save the person who has to take the altar down at night, having to do it. So, and I'm hungry, so it fulfills 2 purposes, and then they don't get stale overnight. Yeah, right? So it seems all very good. The monasteries have lots of these things, they're not going to miss it if I take something, and, I need it. Well, whatever we feel like, rummaging through those office drawers. Okay, and then 4 is feeling no sense of personal integrity or consideration for others regarding what we've done. So personal integrity in Buddhism relates to oneself and is based on a feeling of self-respect. We have scruples about an action because we feel deep in ourselves that it is not right and worthy of us who have taken the Bodhisattva vows. Okay? The sense of integrity has a restraining effect and prevents us from engaging in wrongdoing. Consideration for others is similar, except that it is others' feelings that we take into consideration. It is in relationship to others that we feel shy about the action we were contemplating and uncomfortable at the thought of what good and decent people would think if they knew about what we were planning to do. Okay. Now he translates that shame and embarrassment. Okay, I don't translate it as shame because shame is a really loaded word in English. Yeah, and often connotes this sense of deep personal unworthiness, like being like defected goods. Yeah, so that's not the meaning of it. It's more the kind of shame of when you know what you're supposed to do and you don't do it, okay? But because that word shame is so loaded, I don't use it. I think personal integrity gives us a much better feeling for what it actually means, because with personal integrity, we have a sense of ourselves as a person who is worthwhile and trying to keep good ethical conduct or trying to keep our precepts. And we respect ourselves, and so we don't want to do anything antithetical to our own internal values and principles. Yeah, because we have a sense of integrity, a sense of self-respect. Okay? The one of embarrassment, I also prefer consideration for others, because embarrassment, I usually think of, when you drop something all over the floor and you feel embarrassed, and that kind of feeling of embarrassment. But this is a little bit different. Yeah, it's a feeling whereas with integrity, it's based on our own self and how we feel about ourselves, and we want to be a person with good ethical conduct. Consideration for others is considering first how our behavior is going to influence somebody else. Yeah, and it may make them lose faith in the Dharma. It may make them, lose faith in humanity. Who knows what? Okay, and also we feel like these are people who are wise, and I don't want to behave like that in front of them. Okay, and I don't even want to behave like that behind their back, because if they find out, then I just don't feel good about myself for what I'm doing. Okay? Yeah. So we refrain from negativity, considering the effect of our actions on others. Okay? Whether they're ordinary sentient beings or wise beings that, who we certainly don't want to offend. Yeah. So this isn't attachment to reputation. It's not like, they're going to think I'm a bad person, talk behind my back. It's not that. Yeah, it's like, wow, what I do has an effect. And if I harm other sentient beings and make them lose faith, that's not good. And if I do something that wise people are going to look at and say, what's going on with her, then also I don't feel good about that either. Okay? So these two mental factors are very important ones to cultivate, because they're the ones that refrain us from not only breaking precepts, but doing any kind of negativity. So it's quite important to cultivate these two. Mm-hmm. As we are committing the transgression, or immediately afterwards, if we feel just slightly a sense of personal integrity or consideration for others, although it may not be enough to stop us from doing the action, it is sufficient to prevent the transgression's completion. Okay, so if while you're doing it you feel like, yikes, what am I saying? This is not good, then the transgression isn't complete. If it takes an hour or so to realize what we have done is wrong and to feel embarrassed by it, it is too late. It is not necessary to feel both integrity and consideration for others. One of the two is enough. Okay? And the fourth binding factor implies, therefore, a total lack of integrity or consideration for others about what we are doing or have just done. Yeah, so I don't care. You look perplexed.
Well, I don't understand the first example.
Uh-huh.
Of if you get it out of your mouth and then you realize that you shouldn't have said it, and he says it's too late. But all four are not present there, right? Even if it's already out of your mouth and you say it's not too late.
No, it is, he's saying,
yeah.
Okay, with that if it's out of your mouth, okay, unless you have some awareness of it being wrong, or some wish of not wanting to do it again, or some lack of delight, or some consideration or integrity, if you don't have that before the action's finished, or up to, a couple of minutes, a minute or so afterwards, then the action's complete.
So regretting it afterwards or anything like that, doesn't.
Yeah, if you regret it later on, it's good because then you'll do some purification. Yeah. But it's, you still broke the precept.
Well, I don't see that's the part I don't get. If I said what I didn't want to say, and then I heard it, and went, oh my goodness, then I don't rejoice. But this is afterwards. Now it's out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But I'm not rejoicing that I said it.
Right. Right. So if it's immediately, and part of your regret is going on while you're saying it, then it's not complete. Okay? Because he said from beginning to end, these 4 have to be there. Yeah. So if before you finish saying it, you have this feeling of, oh, what am I doing? This is not good. Then, one of the factors isn't there. Yeah. But if you get done saying it, and you feel, oh, very satisfied, and then you go, oh, if that happens immediately afterwards, then maybe it's not a full transgression. But if it takes you, some time to realize it, then, the transgression's been completed with the 4 binding factors. Okay? Yeah, think about it. Depending on which binding factors are present, we commit a complete transgression, a medium fault, or a lesser one. If the 4 binding factors are present in all other aspects of the action as well, then the deed is complete, which means that we lose our Bodhisattva vow. If the first factor, for example, not considering the action to be wrong, is present, and the other 3 are lacking, it's a medium fault. If the first factor is absent, that is, if we are unaware what we are doing is wrong, and the other 3 are present, we commit a lesser fault. But it's going to be hard if, it seems to me, if as soon as you have the first one, it's going to be hard not to have the other ones. Yeah. Unless, can you think of a situation? Well, you might have a situation where you know what you're doing is wrong, but your afflictions are so strong. That could be an example of one. Yeah. You know what you're doing is breaking a precept. The afflictions are so strong. Yeah. You wish to abstain from doing it again. You don't take joy in what you're saying. You feel kind of bad about what you're doing. But the affliction is like so strong that it pushes you through. So in that case, that would be an example of like one of the factors being there, the first one being there, but the others not. As long as we are aware that our action is wrong, even if we still do it, we avoid a complete transgression. The first binding factor, the impression that what we're doing is not wrong, is the worst. Based on the awareness that the action is negative, integrity and other positive mental states can arise. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I find it difficult.
Uh-huh.
It seems like there's a part, like I have a lot of so much heaviness or fog that...
So much what?
Heaviness, fog.
Fog. Okay. Foggy mindedness. Mm-hmm.
That sometimes I don't even realize. It's like when I took the highest tantra, in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was doing, and then I was not breaking the vow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I don't explain it properly,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to be confused that I come, like, not being stupid, but being all...
Okay, so when we have obscuration in our mind, so we're not realizing what we're doing. Okay, when you gave that example of taking a highest class Tantra initiation and not realizing what you were getting into, I don't think that's simply through your obscuration. It could also be because people did not explain it well enough to the audience, you know, so that people actually did not know what they were doing. Yeah, it happens a lot, you know, or that you get pressure to take an initiation and you don't understand what's going on and it sounds good what the other person's saying to you. So that kind of thing, you know, is a lack of adequate information. There's other times when we just have so much obscuration in our mind, and that's when somebody says to us with kindness, oh, please take care of this behavior, you know, or check up what you're doing. And we go, what in the world are you talking about? What I'm doing is perfectly all right. Yeah? So there's no awareness. Our mind is too obscured to even see that what we're doing is damaging. Okay?
But I still break the vow, right?
You mean in the case of taking an initiation without knowing what you're doing?
Like talking about the Bodhisattva, like my anger. I like the other day, I pick up a plate and I pick it up with a lot of anger, like you're late. My mind, like you're late.
Mm-hmm.
It was done. It didn't even
Okay, when you pick up a plate with anger, you're not breaking the Bodhisattva vow.
I'm not.
No, does any of the ones that, you know?
But it's, well, it's like...
Anger is not virtuous, but you have to look at exactly the instances of anger and so on that are being discussed when we talk about these different vows. You know, there's a section in here about the ones that we do out of anger. Let me read it to you. You can see if any of them fall into that. Okay, so here are the ones that you do, you know, primarily with anger. Yeah, returning insults, anger, beating, or criticism with insults and the like. Neglecting those who are angry with oneself by not trying to pacify their anger. Refusing to accept the apologies of others, and acting out thoughts of anger. Okay? So you might be really angry and think, oh, I'm so late, and pick up this plate.
Not me. Just think the other person being late.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, it's a non-virtuous thought, but you're not breaking a bodhisattva precept. You know, I think when it here is talking about acting out thoughts of anger, I think that's much more, you know, you're angry at someone and you really want to do something to harm them. Yeah. Yeah. So don't get too, you know, it's not good, but don't get too hard on yourself and think that, you know, everything I do is breaking a precept.
You don't see all different.
Yeah, but the Abbey is still standing and everybody else is still talking to you. So I don't think you could be that bad. If you were as bad as you think you would, none of these people would be your friends, and they're all your friends. I hope. Yeah. And your anger hasn't burnt down the Abbey yet.
No, not yet.
Yeah, so. Yeah.
You broke your vows in this case when it implicates another person.
When
it's another person. They are the action is another person.
You mean?
Because in that side, as you said, it's just the knowledge.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But there is not another person. If there is another person, then it's broken.
Yeah, I think in that kind of context, if somebody, even there's not another person, but you're so angry that you're violent and start smashing things, I think in that case you would break it, you know. Yeah. But it's not just, you know, an act of a thought of anger flashing through the mind.
Because I try to understand, and I hope I can explain well, that if you think something that you are going to say, but you didn't say, but it has to be another person, then you say that thing, and then is where you broke your book.
Okay, so
just to say it,
and nobody's there. Yeah, in the precepts, so there's some of the precepts that involve us saying something to someone, like teaching emptiness to somebody who's not prepared. There has to be somebody there who's listening. Yeah, if you're just in your own room, or you're talking to the squirrel or something like that, or the cat, then you're not you're not breaking. So you can teach emptiness to Karuna and Maitri all you want to.
And then nothing's happened.
Yeah.
You have your mind complete, but
yeah.
There's no
yeah. So you have to look at which ones breaking them requires somebody to hear and understand what you're saying. Because not all of them require that, but some of them do. Okay? Yeah. And we can see, just in general, thinking something is not going, it doesn't take as much energy as when it comes out of our mouth. When it comes out of our mouth, the mind has already moved. Plus, there's the energy of it coming out of it. And we do it even physically, it takes even more effort. Yeah. So that's why we start out, like with the Pratimoksha precepts, they're helping us to refrain from physical and verbal misdeeds. Okay, because those are much easier to stop than the mind. Mm-hmm. So we really work with, not letting the stuff come out. And then that's a step in the right direction, isn't it? When you consider it, that, before the anger entered our mind and it came out of our mouth a nanosecond later. Didn't it? Most of us, before we met the Dharma, complete like this, flash, in our mind, out the mouth. Yeah? So now, at least, it's like in the mind and but that's progress, isn't it? That's progress. Yeah, even the steam's coming out your ears. You're still making progress. Yeah. And so as we do that, then after a while, yeah, then we begin to be able to catch the anger sooner and sooner and sooner. And as we do more of the bodhicitta meditations, the cause for anger becomes less and less because our mind becomes more flexible. We become, more open-minded, and it dawns on us that, gee, not everybody's going to do what I want them to do. Duh. And when we have that thought in our mind, then it really helps us not get angry. Yeah. So we're definitely making progress. Hmm? Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get one thing, but the shame and embarrassment are like the antidote for this. And when you realize going in your mouth, so then you shame and embarrassment, the way you explain it, arises in your mind. There could be the antidote.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, let's say there's this angry thought, and one of them here is, retaliating when somebody insults us. Okay. So somebody insults us. Yeah. And it's like, who does this guy think he is? I'm going to, insult him right back. And at that moment, we think, oh, but I'm a Dharma practitioner. I don't really want to act this way. Then that's personal integrity. And so that keeps us from doing it. Or maybe, we're about to insult the other person, but some guest is here, and we think, wow, if I talk like this to another member of the Abbey and the guest hears it, they're going to wonder what in the world's going on in this place. I'm going to disturb this person's mind and disturb their faith in the Dharma, so I think I better be quiet right now. Yeah, so that's consideration for others. Okay? Mm-hmm. Let us assume that knowingly we are about to commit a transgression. We start doing it nevertheless, but in the course of the action, before its completion, we feel integrity and stop. Okay? This illustrates the very function of integrity, allowing for the abstention from misbehavior, the absence of which constitutes the fourth binding factor. Okay? So that was actually the answer to your question. The Great Way mentions further factors that may cause exceptions. For people to commit major transgressions of the Bodhisattva vows, they must have taken the vow, okay, so they must have the precepts, and not have let them degenerate. Because if they degenerated their precepts before by breaking one of the 18 major ones, then they no longer have them, so they can't break them. For you cannot break a precept that you do not have. Okay? Furthermore, they must be in a normal state of mind, not mentally ill. Yeah. So if somebody is, completely, in a psychotic state or entirely flipped out, then they didn't do it. And it's the same with the precepts of individual liberation. If you're temporarily insane, then it's not a full break. They must not be in severe physical pain or in a state of great mental distress. Okay? So you can see there's some compassion working here. If somebody is like in incredible physical pain, they're not able to control what's going on with their body, speech, and mind. In the same way, if they're just like totally crazy with grief or some kind of mental distress, they really can't work with their mind. Now, that doesn't mean that as soon as I get angry, I'm in a state of great mental distress, so I'm not doing anything wrong. That didn't break the precepts. My mind is just distressed with anger, that's all. No. Okay, that's not what's meant. Yeah.
Even if a person has bipolar situation,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same, that he has all the vows, but he has these problems.
Yeah. So you're asking if with the other kinds of precepts, if there's also this thing. Yeah. If somebody is insane, yeah, or completely in a situation, somebody's holding a gun to your head and saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill you. So they're, in great mental distress or incredible physical pain or, completely, something like that. Then it's not a transgression of the precepts. Okay. So there's, the Buddha's compassionate. Yeah. So. Among the 3 Bodhisattva ethics, refraining from the 18 transgressions just described constitutes an essential part of the ethical conduct of abstention from wrongdoing. What are the other 2 types of ethical conduct? One is collecting virtue and benefiting others. Okay? So abstaining from non-virtue, collecting virtue, benefiting others. Okay, so now I thought to keep going with the Bodhisattva precepts, even though this started out being under the sixth session, and the sixth session doesn't list all the 46. Since we have them, then I thought to continue with those, and then after that do the tantric precepts. Okay, so where are we? The 46 secondary misdeeds of the Bodhisattva vows are classified according to which of the 6 far-reaching practices they violate, with a final category of faults contrary to the ethical conduct of helping others. Okay, so that means there's 7 categories, ones that are opposite to generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, joyous effort, meditative stability, wisdom, and the 7th one of benefiting others. Okay, so there's those 7 categories of the secondary or the auxiliary ones. Another way to classify them is according to the 3 Bodhisattva ethical conducts: the ethical conduct of abstention from wrongdoing, the ethical conduct of collecting virtue, and the ethical conduct of helping living beings. So you can also break them into those 3. Okay. In this case, 34 of the 46 misdeeds relate to the first 2 types of ethical conduct, and 12 to the 3rd. Okay. We will follow the first system, which is the most common. And so in Pearl of Wisdom, that's the system that's being followed there too. Okay. 7 secondary misdeeds conflict with the first of the 6 far-reaching practices, generosity. 9 with the far-reaching ethical conduct. 4 with far-reaching fortitude. 3 with far-reaching joyous effort. 3 with meditative stability, and 8 with far-reaching wisdom, and then the remaining 12 with ethical conduct of helping others. What is the main difference between the 18 major transgressions and the 46 secondary misdeeds? The 18 major transgressions or downfalls are so called because they discontinue the Bodhisattva vows. Okay? Committing any one of them implies losing our Bodhisattva ethical restraint, while performing a secondary misdeed, although contrary to the Bodhisattva ethical conduct, does not make us lose the Bodhisattva, ethical restraint. As with the 18 transgressions, only a person who has taken the Bodhisattva ethical restraint and keeps it, who is sane, who is not deathly ill or suffering from severe mental distress, can commit the secondary misdeeds. Okay, so those same exceptions hold for these 2. Okay, so now we're going to start the 7 misdeeds contrary to far-reaching generosity. In Buddhism, generosity is described as the intention to give, and it can be of 3 kinds. The intention to give material goods, 1. 2, the intention to give protection or fearlessness, and 3, the intention to give the Dharma. Yeah, sometimes they also include the intention to give love. Depends. Okay. Practicing generosity means developing in our mind the intention to give, and it serves to reduce our miserliness, the unwillingness to give that comes from attachment. Each of the 7 misdeeds incompatible with far-reaching generosity is relative to one or the other of the 3 kinds of giving. And so the first one is inconsistent with the giving of material goods. So we're going to look at the first one. So Chandra Goman says, not making the 3 offerings to the 3 jewels. Okay, so the explanation is, when we use Buddhism as a means for our spiritual growth, we put our trust in the 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. In other words, we take refuge in them. As followers of the great vehicle within Buddhist teachings, we also generate the intention to attain Buddhahood for the sake of all living beings. Having taken refuge and developed bodhicitta, we are advised to honor the 3 jewels by making offerings to them daily. If we neglect to do so, we commit the first secondary misdeed. Okay. So, it makes sense, doesn't it? When we take refuge in the three jewels, then it makes sense. If there's something we treasure, that we rely on, that we depend upon, it's a natural human instinct to give gifts. Yeah, so it makes sense. So, being miserly or whatever and not giving, you can see how that's counterproductive. Now, although here we've also generated bodhicitta, and so we're not taking refuge in sentient beings, certainly not, but we're working for their benefit. So, it would be contrary to the bodhisattva spirit to not give gifts to sentient beings, but that's not this particular precept. That one actually is going to come later. And we actually had it in the second root, one, of not giving the Dharma and material aid to somebody. Yeah? Okay. According to the analysis of this misdeed found in the Great Way, the object of the offerings is any one of the three jewels. As explained in the context of the major transgression, the Buddha jewel refers to either a living Buddha, like Buddha Shakyamuni, or another Buddha who is physically present, or to a representation of a Buddha, such as a statue, painting, photograph, or stupa. Okay, so to Buddha Shakyamuni or some other Buddha that's present, or here the Buddha jewel is including the representations, of the statue, the tankas, and so on. Okay? The actual Dharma jewel is true cessation and true paths, so the last two of the Four Noble Truths. That's the actual Dharma jewel. Okay? And moreover, the holy texts that constitute the Buddha's words, and specifically the Mahayana Sutras and their commentaries, are considered to be the Dharma jewel. Actually, they're representing the Dharma jewel, because those texts and commentaries, and I would also include tapes and videos and things like that in with this, are all showing us how to actualize true paths and true cessation, which are the real Dharma jewel. Yeah. The third object of offerings, the Sangha jewel, is a minimum of one Arya Bodhisattva, so a Bodhisattva who's directly realized emptiness, or in the case of ordinary beings or non-Aryas, it is a group of at least 4 fully ordained monastics, particularly members of the Mahayana Sangha. Okay, so we have that here now. Yay! As for the nature of the offerings, they may be physical, verbal, or mental. So when it says not making the 3 kinds of offerings to the 3 jewels, so we just talked about what the 3 jewels are, then the 3 kinds of offering are physical, verbal, and mental offerings. Okay? Physical offerings consist of acts of homage made with our body by doing prostrations, either the long ones or the short ones, or simply bowing with our hands in prayer position, putting our hands like this. Okay. Furthermore, all material substances such as flowers, candles, incense, and so on that we present to the 3 jewels serve as physical offerings. Okay, so that's physical offerings. Yeah, the first one, offerings made by our body. So it could be making material offerings on the altar. It could be bowing to the Buddha. It could be just putting our hands together. But some physical something. Yeah. So unless you're really, really sick and can't even move your arms to go like this, then there's, normally in the course of a day, hopefully we make some kind of physical offering. Okay. Verbal offerings are acts of homage presented in the form of a minimum of 4 lines of praise to the 3 jewels. Okay, so it's 4 lines of praise, thinking of their qualities and saying something, out loud. And finally, we make offerings mentally by contemplating the 3 jewels' extraordinary qualities and generating faith in them. Okay, so mentally thinking about them. So this isn't always so easy to do, is it? You know, sometimes it's like, yeah, even though we're supposed to make three prostrations in the morning when we get up and before we go to bed, and you know, my back hurts, or I'm late, or I'm too tired and I forgot, and then somebody else is setting up the altar this morning, you know, and so then we don't do anything. Yeah. If we offer our food, yeah, so that's something. Okay. But maybe, well, you know, I'm on my own. I don't need to offer my food. Forget it. Yeah. So it's possible that a day goes by without making physical offerings. Yeah. And this is one of the benefits of being in a community, is that all day long, your whole day is structured so that you're doing this. Okay. Same with verbal offerings. You know, it could be easy, and you know, he says a little bit later on that we should at least say something that's audible to ourselves, you know. But I know sometimes I'm on a plane, yeah, and I can't start talking. You know, you're on one of these long plane rides. I mean, I guess I could go in the bathroom and, you know, say the homage to the Buddha in the bathroom, but I usually don't think of that. You know, I mean, I do my practices while I'm on these long plane rides. I do my practices, and, you know, and I might go like this or whatever. I don't prostrate down the aisle. Although I would like to, I could use the exercise on these long flights, you know. Yeah, but you know, I think in a situation like that, you know, maybe if you're verbally saying it to yourself, maybe that's okay. It doesn't have to come out of your mouth. Yeah. 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 Let me read this phrase. To the adapt has then the destroyer, one that's gone. Destroyer.
You'd be buzzing for the stewardess to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, time is an important element in this misdeed. Neglecting to make offerings to the three jewels at least once every 24 hours is a secondary misdeed. Now, I wonder what happens if you're really, really sick and you sleep or you're in coma for 24 hours. I mean, that must be one of these situations of you're in incredible physical distress, you know. Okay. However, it is not absolutely necessary to present them to all three jewels. One is sufficient. Okay, so just making offering to one of the three jewels is okay. On the other hand, we must make all three kinds of offerings, physical, verbal, and mental, within a 24-hour period. When we have a daily meditation practice, we most likely fulfill this precept, for most practices include praise and moments where we at least join our hands to pay homage. It is at the mental level that we have to be most careful, for when we make a regular habit of reciting our prayers, we may come to say them mechanically and mindlessly. When faith is lacking, recitation and meditation no longer constitute offerings. Uh-oh. Better, let's get a little bit of faith in here, a little bit of awareness. There is some discussion as to whether silent meditation is sufficient or if it needs to be accompanied by recitation and physical gestures. After all, it is said that the offerings must be made by means of the body, speech, and mind. It would seem, therefore, that a minimum of physical and verbal activity is necessary. We must utter some praise loud enough for us to hear, if not those around us, and at least bow our heads respectfully. Okay? So, but you know, I know when I was training in Nepal, the walls between our rooms were paper thin, And if you ever did your practices out loud, wow, your neighbors really complained because they could hear the whole thing. So I got in the habit of I just do everything silently. You know, that's kind of my habit. Even nobody's around, I don't say it out loud. But, you know, sometimes I think it could be good to do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. Once bodhisattvas have reached the first of the 10 levels, it is no longer possible for them to commit this misdeed, for they are making offerings continually. Isn't that beautiful? I heard this great story about Rilpa Rinpoche once, and he had cancer, and he was in a hospital somewhere on the East Coast, and, you know, was completely, you know, like sleeping or in a coma or something. And at one point he woke up and he said, wow, there's Buddhas. He said this to his attendant. And said, there's Buddhas all around. You know, please get something. Let's make offerings to them. Isn't that amazing? You know, his first thought, yeah, even though he was in so much physical distress, and seeing all these Buddhas, you know. So that's a well-trained mind. Okay, so I'll just finish this little bit here. We commit this misdeed, therefore, when we fail to make daily offerings with our body, speech, and mind to any of the 3 jewels. It is more serious if this negligence stems from a lack of respect for the Bodhisattva precepts. An example would be the thought, it's not really important, after all, it's only a secondary precept. Okay, so that constitutes lack of respect for the Bodhisattva precepts. The transgression may also be prompted by a lack of faith in the 3 jewels. Yeah, 3 jewels, yeah. So what? And thirdly, laziness in the form of attraction to wrongdoing can induce it. Okay, so the laziness of being so busy doing other things that we, you know, have no time to think about the 3 jewels. In these cases, the misdeed is said to be associated with afflictions. Okay? Because you can see, yeah, if there's disrespect, if we're so attracted to wrongdoings, if we lack faith, there's affliction in our mind. Okay? If we simply forget to make offerings, perhaps because we are very busy, not that we're attracted to wrongdoing, but maybe, you know, you're working really hard in the temple or something. Given that neither lack of respect or lack of faith or laziness in the form of attraction to wrongdoing are involved, the misdeed is said to be disassociated from afflictions. Okay. So what's interesting here is that laziness is laziness is one of the afflictions, but here, if you don't do something with laziness, it's not considered a transgression associated with afflictions. It's still considered one without afflictions. Okay, or not without, but not associated with afflictions. The misdeed is incompatible with one aspect of the Bodhisattva ethics of collecting virtue. Okay, so you know, when we were talking about the 3 ethical conducts, so this is one that doesn't go along with the second one, the ethical conduct of collecting virtue, yeah, which is to collect merit in relationship to superior objects or fields of merit. Okay, so you can see that, you know, not making offerings, this isn't to the 3 jewels. This isn't one of not helping others. It's not one of abstaining from negativity. It's one of, you know, not collecting virtue. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. So when you make offerings every morning, yeah, or when you bow, or, anything, then you can say, oh, I'm fulfilling the first, auxiliary Bodhisattva precept. It's important that we rejoice at our own merit. It's important.